Hello, and welcome to another episode of Crossing Bridges Talk Show. I'm your host, Larry Montgomery Sr. This is my co host back from his vacation, overextended, and now on full salary, $1 a week.
Hmm.
And Will, introduce yourself.
Good evening, everyone. I'm William Montgomery. It's a pleasure to be here.
Seems he still got his lines, so he didn't lose his mind while he was gone. Anyway, we are here today to talk. We had a guest scheduled for today, but unfortunately, she had some unexpected difficulties and will not be with us. Um, we try to bring in special guests every now and then to broaden the scope, but also to give different perspectives of their experiences that are relevant to fatherlessness in the Black community. So this week we're going to have to try to do what we can. We have a topic. I think we discussed it some months back, and I'm not sure if we're going to get to it today, but the topic was generational pathologies. And yeah, so, Will, did you have some comments you want to make?
Well, it's good to be back. I will say that. It was a nice break from the norm, and I'm not going to go into a whole lot of details, but um, it's good to be back and good to be part of the show again.
Yeah, we missed you. You know, your in-depth analyses and spontaneous rhetoric.
Gotta love it. You
I'm
never know
still
what you're
laughing.
gonna get.
Anyway, um, I wanted to talk about um, this week in particular for me because I want to give God the glory for what He did in my life and my wife's life this week. And let me try to get it out, so everybody can understand it. Um, I have authored a number of books over the last 15 years. Some of them were fiction, mostly fiction, crime and investigation, mystery, some sci-fis. But then I have a collection of religious Bible study guides, and a number of topics: faith, um, idolatry. What else? Uh, some other topics, without giving a list, because you can always go to my website www.theauthorscorner.online. That's the authors. Really? Is he on Google now? Okay, theauthorscorner.online. All right, so you can go there and see the entire collection. But one book in particular I wrote, it's entitled You Ask and God Answers. And it's written as a guide through 13 different topics, questions that man ask. For example, you're in a particular situation in life and you're feeling, well, I don't really know what to do. You know, God has an answer for that. Well, I don't feel loved. And God has an answer for that. And we go through the scriptures and some commentary there. So anyway, with that book being written, probably 13 years ago, there was one or two opportunities I went out on a book fair or book signing, and people buy books and they ask that you sign them. Okay, fine, and sign them to so and so and such and such. So I did, and in that, 13 years ago, a woman came to me and asked, to buy that particular book. You ask and God answers, and she had me autograph it, put her name in it. For whatever reason, the book she left the book. Okay, and I picked it up, and brought it home, whatever. Over that 13-year period, we have moved. We downsized one house, moved into a cozy apartment because only me and my wife, and now we've relocated out of state into Atlanta, bought another house, and so we've moved a couple of times. And over those times, as usual, stuff gets misplaced, stuff gets broken, stuff gets lost, stuff gets left. But that particular book, and uh, stayed with me. I have others, copies, whatever. So anyway, fast forward. We came to Atlanta about in April, moved here, and one of my wife's former employees has also retired a few years ago, and they moved to the Atlanta area. So as things unfolded, um, he called, and so we got together, whatever. But when he called, he asked us where we were living, and we told him, because there's a little community. I mean, it's a city, but it's like a little community. And he says, I'm less than 5 minutes from your house. So we're like, are you serious? Not like we planned it or anything like that. We only people we know down here is Will, and he lives in a totally different city. You know, I'm in Atlanta, he's in Augusta, and we have a son in Alabama, and I got some other relatives here. My wife has a couple of relatives here. Okay, so fine. In the area of Georgia, you know, and anything, if you know anything about Georgia, everywhere you go is 30 minutes. And we're coming out of New York where everywhere you go is probably 5 to 10 minutes away. So yeah, it's a lifestyle change. But anyway, back to the gentleman. His name is George. So George, um, said, I'm 5 minutes away, whatever, come over and talk. So we gone over a few times and talked. And he's a very religious guy, and we're going to get him on the show for you. So look forward to that some way. How, I don't know. We get him on here. And we spent a lot of time talking about the Bible and Christ and religion and things like that. So we're sitting this week here at our house talking, and it dawned on me. I said, I haven't invited him to come on the show. I've told him about the show, and he's seen it, but I hadn't invited him to come on. So I'm thinking, so well, if I invite him to come on, what am I going to talk about? Because I have a schedule of probably into October right now of guests coming on different topics. And so I want to bring him on. I don't want to wait till October to come on. I want to bring him on, as soon as possible. And I'm not sure if he would be prepared to discuss that particular topic. You know what I mean? So anyway, I'm thinking while he's sitting there talking. And so I get up, I said, well, my book with those 13 topics in it, um, he could talk on any one of those, from personal experience or just straight up from the Bible, because he's, you know, very knowledgeable there. So I get up, I go and come to my office, I get the book, I'm looking for the book, and I'm like, usually I have like two or three copies of each, and I only had the one copy. So I pull it out, okay, great, and I'm getting ready to go back to the living room, and I open the book up and I look, I said, "Oh, it's an autograph copy. I wrote it to somebody else, you know." And so I'm like, "Oh man, he's not going to be, you know, it's like kind of awkward, you know. You're giving somebody a gift and somebody else is naming it, like you're re-gifting something." So well, I'll explain it to him. So I come back in the living room. I sit down. We're sitting talking, the three of us. I put the book down next to him. So that's for you. He reaches over to the book. He looks at the book. He says, "I read this." So I'm like, "Really?" He said, "Really? Okay. Yeah." He said, "I read this, some time ago." I said, "Okay." So he opens the book up, the first page. He sees the autograph. He says, "What is this?" So I'm like, yeah. I was going to tell you, one I had, and I had, the whole 9 yards." I explained. He said, "Well, whose name is this?" So I said, "Well, let me see it," because I didn't remember the name. So I read the name off. He, I give him back the book. He picks up his phone. He starts scrolling through it. Clicks the button. Hello? So he's calling somebody. Okay. He's calling the person who the book was author, autographed for. So I'm saying, what a coincidence. You know this person? I could hardly read my own handwriting. You know this person? He said, so he got him on the phone, a woman, got him on the phone. He's talking to her, guess what happened, so and so and such. And she's trying to, and visualize this whole conversation. So after about a minute or so, he says, "Look, okay, I'll talk to you later because I know you're driving." Now I'm sitting there listening to him. I didn't hear him ask her if she was driving or where she was. So I'm sitting there, and after another minute or so, we're still going back and forth about the book. He says, "That's my sister." "Your sister?" Because she has a different name. She's married. You said, "Wow, I, I can't. I've had this book for damn near 13 years,
Mm, mm. Wow.
and the only one I have left. And we're sitting here talking about the Bible, and I pull it out and lay it down here, and it's the book that she left at the book signing,
Mm,
which was in our church back then, the church we were going to. And so we're sitting there, and then he says, "I talked to my wife, and I told her that this was going to happen." His wife is out of town visiting relatives. I'm sitting there, my mouth is on the floor, my wife's mouth is on the floor.
mm,
Like, I can't believe this. You talk about coincidence. You could not script how this thing unfolded. You know, wrote a book, sold the book, signed the book, held on to the book. 13 years later, pretty much, had moved 2 times
mm,
to another state, still had the book, and the first person I show it to has already read it, and it was autographed to his sister,
mm,
who had just visited him and had left that morning
mm.
going back home.
Oh man.
Amazing.
Mm,
Amazing. I'm saying, and without going to all the other stuff that's going on, it just confirmed to us that God had placed us here at this time for a reason. This just wasn't like, oh, a coincidence. Coincidences are different from this.
mm-hmm.
This was just totally amazing. But anyway, So that's how our week kind of rolled out. Now back,
Amazing week.
yeah, I'm convinced
Hmm.
when they talk about God has a plan for you, He got a plan for you.
Hmm.
You know, and it ain't one of those things that was willy nilly. You just came up with it this morning because suddenly you decided to be good.
Hmm.
This was planned before you got here,
Hmm.
every step of the way. And he knew where you were going to be, what you're going to be doing, and he pushes the button when he wants to push the button. So we sit here and we talk about, well, I've been in churches where they'll sit there and they'll say, oh, God has got a lot for you, so and so, and whatever, but you being disobedient and you're going to miss your blessing. I'm like, if God decided he was going to bless me, ain't no devil in hell going to abort it. And certainly not me, because God is not one to lie. He knows you got free will. You could flip out at any minute for any reason. He also knows what you're going to do, when you're going to do it, and why you're going to do it. Because what kind of plan would I have for you if you had the option of doing whatever the heck you wanted to do? That ain't no plan. That's a hope. I'm hoping this happens. It's a wish. He got a plan. It's done. It's a wrap. You're going to be here such and such a time saying such and such to so and so. Trust me. You know.
Hmm.
So the thing is but you want that road to be easy. You don't want to do. I mean, there'll be enough ups and downs in your life anyway. So why do you want to add any curbs and dips or whatever, cliffs or whatever along the way? So you want to try to be obedient to the things of God, and he's not asking much. You know, love your neighbor like you love yourself. Yeah, some neighbors aren't really neighborly, but you handle them that way. So I'm not trying to hurt you, um, unless I have to, and even then I would be in love and help you out there, that you get your mind straight. But besides that, um, it's just amazing because I'm at one time in my life I was a Republican.
Hmm.
Not that Republicans don't know God, but they have their own perspective, and so it is what it is. And I became a Democrat for various reasons. Because when I was a Republican, I only became a Republican to get a job.
Hmm.
So it wasn't like I was committed to it up front. But then after a while, you start to think and act like, whatever, whatever. Okay, fine. And it worked until I realized that that really wasn't making a lot of sense for me. So I changed to Democrat. And I saw a post, I think I told you about it a few weeks ago on Facebook. It was a picture of a two-headed snake.
Hmm.
And that's what politics is.
Hmm.
Two heads on the same snake.
Hmm.
Just one does it one way and the other one does it the other way. So it's still the same snake.
Hmm.
Anyway,
Pretty much.
uh, yeah, pretty much. Um, Here and I don't want to talk politics, but we're down here in Georgia, and Herschel Walker is running for Congress. And I mean, Herschel might be a real nice guy, but I don't think that representing people in a legal environment is strong suit. Um, there have been a lot of criticisms in the advertising, the campaigns. One campaign is always against the other campaigner, you know. And in politics, the more dirt you throw on somebody else, it's assumed that you'll win because they're not throwing any dirt on you. And the Herschel is running against who's it, Warnock, Yeah, Warnock,
Yeah.
the pastor,
Hmm.
which is always an interesting conversation by itself. And that pastor is in politics.
Hmm.
Uh, we have a rule here in this country: don't mix politics with religion for many different reasons.
Hmm.
But anyway, it happened. It is what it is. I just don't see a lot of the dirt that's being thrown. It's not like fake dirt, make up stuff about somebody and throw it out there. They're using, this is the pastor, are using Herschel's own words, videos of Herschel speaking and bringing out things that am I telling you something you don't know, Will?
I mean, I really don't follow much what's
Okay.
going on because, like you said, if it's the same headed snake, if it's a two-headed snake, that just means that you know you're darned if you do and you're darned if you don't. So this pastor throwing dirt on Herschel Walker for whatever reason, I guess he's just assimilated into the political world like everybody else. So we'll be expecting the same stuff from him that we've been expecting from everybody else because look what we got now. I mean, he had to vote for some of that stuff that's affecting us right now with the inflation going rampant. Herschel Walker didn't do that. But of course, I'm not going, if I'm running, I'm not going to point out my shortcomings. I'm always going to point out the next person's shortcomings, even though a lot of Americans are screwed over by that same pastor who is now throwing dirt on uh, an ex football player.
Well, one of the points that's been made, in the advertising campaigns, both sides are doing what they do. The pastor has presented, some of the shortcomings that Herschel has put himself into. One, something about he has 800 employees. He's one of the largest minority owned companies in the country. He actually has 8 employees. Okay, well, Herschel, I mean, it's one thing to be, exaggerate, embellish, use that word, but I can't get from one digit to 3 digits. I just can't make it. But anyway,
I mean, but
uh,
sorry to interrupt,
well,
but
go
I
on.
mean, because we're kind of talking politics here, but
Yeah, kind of. Yeah.
the gentleman that is throwing all this dirt, like I said, has affected hundreds of millions of people. Some people lost their jobs, because of what Congress was doing, during COVID and stuff like that. Cost a lot of people their jobs. We got this high inflation. So instead of pointing out what this man lied about, why isn't this pastor running on what he has done for the American people? Because I think that would be stepping up above the normal political back and forth, backstabbing, backbiting, whatever, and say, hey, look, I stand on my record of fighting for the American people, fighting for black people, fighting for religious rights and stuff, because they did shut down a lot of churches during COVID, but people were out protesting. They would say, oh, that's your right to protest, but you don't have the right to go to church. Um, that don't match, you know. But this is the politician that is supposed to be above everybody else because if we look at, if he's a man of the cloth and he's, for the people and doing all these good things, why are you throwing dirt? Why don't you say, hey, look, my record is this. This is what I do, and it's not about Herschel Walker. Why would I even mention him if he's an irrelevant entity?
Well, I don't want to leave the wrong impression there in the campaigning thing.
Hmm.
You've got commercials where the pastor is in the commercial speaking. Then you have the committees who present commercials in support of. And in those commercials, um, the technique now is, well, the actual candidate says, well, I approve this message. Okay. Hopefully because it's true. So the weight falls on the committee that put it out there. Um, with the things that the pastor has said about Herschel, again, with video of him actually speaking and so on and so forth, Herschel has not responded to any one of those items in any way, shape, or form. Okay, that's your prerogative. Unfortunately, I would probably want to say if it's a lie, I'm going to respond to it. If it's the truth, I'm just going to ignore it because it's not the truth I want people to debate me on or whatever. But more to your point about the pastor and his representation, I saw a commercial the other day that said something to the effect that the pastor voted with President um, Biden 96% of the time. And then it went on, excuse me, then it went on to talk about throat. It went on to talk about inflation and job loss and stuff like that there.
Mm-hmm.
My understanding, without really going into depth about the commercial, the pastor's one of a number of congressmen there who vote on the different things that come before them. A lot of them are coming from, and I'm just going out on a limb here, most of the stuff he's voting on is coming from other congressmen and or the president. Whatever he can bring to the table will probably be one item on one day when all the other hundred or so congressmen are also bringing their topics, their bills, and the president's bringing his. So yeah, you could earnestly understand. Well, one day there were at least 100 bills on the table, and I'm a congressman. I need to be voting on all of these, including the president's. So yeah, 96% of the time I voted, you know, for something else that wasn't on my plate, wasn't my plate in front of me. The one or two things that he has been able to get done since he's actually brand new, um, there was a criticism that he was voting. He got something done with the longshoremen down here, and then the Republican Party responds, not Herschel, but the committee responds, well, this other company went under, and the congressman didn't even know about it. And the logic there is to make people think that the pastor doesn't know what's going on in his district. The reality is he cannot humanly know about everything that happens in the district. And if you're going to hold one congressman responsible like that, then you got to hold the entire government responsible the same way. You're supposed to know everything that's going on in your district, which is impossible. You can't vote on nobody else's top bills. Even the president's, you only vote on yours. If you come in there with the attitude you're only going to vote on those things that are relevant to you, you are not going to be successful in getting anything that you want done done. Because if you're not voting from time to time with me, I'm not voting from time to time with you. That's how they operate up there. That's how they've been operating up there. And that's what we've accepted, which is fine. You can't earnestly sit down as a citizen and expect that your congressman is going to only vote on things that are relevant to you and they are going to be passed. It just doesn't work like that. But anyway, Herschel, nice guy, good football player. Um, some people call him great. I say he was good, because I'm not a fan. That's okay. But you know, the him representing anyone, Republican or Democrat, is a waste of money, a waste of vote. Period.
Well, I mean, it seems like we walked into the political arena because,
Yeah, we did.
you know, I mean, but everybody has their own opinions, and the thing is, if you only listen to one side, you only get one point. You only get one picture of it. So I would say for all those people that, you know, feel that way, they should check out both sides of the field. Like some people lean towards CNN, who are losing a lot of their subscribers. Some people like Fox. Some people like MS. Was it uh, NBC, MSNBC, or whatever? All those ones. I mean, sometimes you need to look for a different opinion on stuff. If everybody's always saying what you want to say and agree with you, you might want to check on who's opposing you, because having that full picture painted will probably enlighten you. Because, like I said, Warnock, people that want to vote for Warnock, hey, like I said, we got the highest inflation in 40 years. Hey, thank you, Warnock. You know, yeah,
Well,
the COVID response. Thank you, Warnock. You know what I'm saying? We got a lot of stuff that we have to be thankful for Mr. Warnock for, and people need to remember that. So when yep. I mean, look at everybody's pocketbook. It's like, hey, I got all this bread because of Mr. Warnock. I mean, when you are part of a system, if you're not speaking out against it, then you're with them. If you vote with the president and the president has screwed how many millions of people this year? Many. Um, I mean, everybody sees the gas prices. Gas prices was going up before the war in Russia, but they're going to try to fool us. They want us to believe that it's Putin's problem why the gas prices are so high. But
I don't think that that's what they want to believe, but I understand your point
but that's what
about
they want.
getting perspective from both sides,
Hmm.
so you make an informed decision.
Yeah, that's how everybody
But
should be.
what what's not quite comfortable for me is that one side typically deflects the truth, and
Yeah.
the other side is sitting there like, why are they blaming me? You know, this
Well,
inflation, this inflation
mhm.
era, us is not Biden's fault. Okay,
Yeah.
so I'm gonna stop that point.
I
I'm
mean,
not gonna say
I can
anything
say,
else on that. I'm gonna say that is not his fault. Yes, you could say. Well, 1 second. Yes, you could say the impact of COVID on the world has brought this inflationary uh, season into play, because we went through almost a year and a half where people weren't buying anything because people weren't working, people were home, and or they weren't working, they didn't have any money. Now, when things have kind of subsided and trying to get back to norm, you would expect that people are going out doing those things that they weren't doing before. And yeah, it looks like it's a jump because a lot of companies who were pre-COVID up to par doing what they do, suddenly COVID comes, everybody falls apart. Now, COVID is slipping away. We're like trying to get back up to speed, and it costs.
well,
Okay, they pass it on to the consumers. Okay,
that's what they want you to believe. Because the problem is, how many people have left New York State because of their policies that New York had? A lot of people left New York State and went to a lot of red states that were not closed and had all those lockdowns because their policies were the one that was hurting businesses and people in their economies, their local economies. That's why a lot of people are leaving California. That's why a lot of people are leaving New York. That's why people are going to Texas, Arizona, Florida. But then they were all demonized in the news, like New York was doing so well, but look at their governor, Mr. Cuomo, who is no longer their governor because of his policies, the things that he was doing, which was affecting all of the New Yorkers. But that impression of what he was doing was transposed by New Yorkers onto the rest of the country. Georgia was doing good during COVID. Everybody was demonizing Georgia for opening back up. They was like, "Oh, you're opening up too soon." This, that, and the other. But a lot of these people, movies are being shot in Georgia. Georgia's economy's going pretty good, really good. Uh, Florida is booming. They got movies down there. They got ships. They got everything down there. They're doing great. But it's these policies that were destroying people's homes, finances, and things of that nature. And that's why people have left those areas and gone to other places that weren't locked down. But like I
Well,
said, if you look at your wallet from back then,
well,
everything was met a certain way. Now things are a certain way because inflation is there, but a lot of that was because they.
well.
Uh,
This inflationary era is
mhm.
not relegated to New York, California, or
I
any
know
place in particular. It's across the country. It's around the world. But the point I'd like to make, and not to take anything away from what you said, um, I want to broaden the perspective. Your perspective has come across as I mean, you correct me if I'm wrong. From a business perspective, um, there's the policies negatively impact businesses. The broader conversation is people. The policies were put in place to protect people. Whether you're a businessman or an employee, it didn't matter. The policies were put in place that, yeah, wear a mask, social distance, that kind of a thing.
that's,
Um, gathering events and stuff, we want to hold off on that. So I understand your point,
those
but I'm
weren't the
just saying,
policies that were the problem. They were shutting down businesses for not following their policies. They put in what was that one where they had that Biden put in up that one policy that Biden had that was if you have a business that has over 100 people, they need to be vaccinated, which later on was found out to be unconstitutional. Even though people were saying it had to go through the court system for
it
it to
was
be
only
legal.
determined unconstitutional
Yeah, because
because a union decided that they didn't want to comply. And that's a
no, there was
business.
people. There were
That
people that were getting fired.
that was
Doctors, that there were people, doctors, lawyers, doctors, and police officers were being fired because that policy came out. Even people that were already not vaccinated, but already had suffered with COVID, that was dealing with COVID patients, they were losing their jobs because of that policy.
because
It-
right, because the
But
policy was put in place to protect people.
that's what I'm saying. These
And then
people
the
didn't need
unions
protection.
decided, certain unions decided to step up and say, no, we got to protect our members, which is true. You understand that. That's what they're there for. And they were able to prevail. Unfortunately, the benefit of having a union when they first started unions was because people weren't receiving benefits or any job security. Now that we've kind of moved past that era into a society where people are a little more understanding, yeah, people still screw each other. I understand that. But people are still more, you're not going to get anybody who wants to work for you if you don't offer benefits. All right. I don't need a union shop to demand or to put my back against the wall to give benefits anymore. It just doesn't make any sense not to give benefits because people are expecting them. So that's one question. And put that to the side. And again, like I said, your focus has been on business, and I
But
understand that.
I,
And
but here's the thing, though. Businesses employ people. People,
yeah,
that's how they get their bread and butter. So when you attack the businesses, you are, in a sense, attacking those people that are employed by those businesses.
well, one question. I just maybe you can answer this. Name one business that is not run by people. Right, none. Okay.
When that's why I said when you attack business, you are attacking people. Your point was my only focus was business, but businesses run businesses, people work in businesses to earn their money without Just
Right.
because I'm saying business doesn't mean I'm negating the people factor, because the people are the ones who are affected when businesses go under when they lose all their standing. When if they go bankrupt or whatever, there's lives that's affected, families
I
that
I
are
I
losing.
I agree.
So,
I
so
agree.
I,
I see your point.
yeah,
But I'm just saying that the policies were put in place to protect the greater good people. Excuse me. Some of the businesses had problems. Some survived. Let's talk about one that actually survived and thrived. No, two: pharmaceuticals and hospitals. They
I,
survived and thrived. That's a
there,
business,
there were
right?
hospitals that were shutting down because of the policies and people.
Some shut down.
But
Some. Majority of them have gotten bigger, have made more money than they ever had made in their existence.
but
And,
when you,
I'm just talking about
yeah,
businesses,
yeah,
business, quote
and,
unquote.
and I will concede that point. But if you close one hospital, let's say here in Georgia, we have in Augusta, we have 3, 4 hospitals, or whatever. If those 3, 4 hospitals close down here, where are we going to get service? So if there was only one hospital here and it closed down, all these people in this area are affected. So when you discount that, oh well, that hospital closed, but these other ones are big. That one in California or New York or wherever that got bigger is not helping people here in Georgia. So people are still getting hurt when businesses are like I said, shut down. There was
But
hospitals that were shutting down. They were shutting down churches. I mean, that
let,
should be a huge problem right there.
let's go to the hospitals because that point is clear and made. Hospital shuts down, entire community is going to suffer because of the policy for the greater good. Resources were brought to bear that had never been brought to bear before to alleviate that problem. In New York, when the president, who at that particular time happened to be Donald Trump, agreed to allow a Navy ship to pull in and to offer as a triage. So your point about businesses, yeah, I'm not going to debate that. That's a point. I'm just saying that the greater good was about people, and without people, there is no business. Without people, there is nothing. So yeah, we can have a conversation about, well, had this happened when the pandemic started, or had this happened into the pandemic, what should have been done, what shouldn't have been done. We could talk about that all day. The
I'm not
point is,
talking about that. The
I
thing
know
is,
we're not going to talk about
after
that.
yeah, the thing is after all that was done, months and months into it, they were still locking people down, firing people over policies instead of looking at the actual science. Was because they always say, oh, the science, the science, the science. That's what they were beating everybody in the head with about the science, but they were not following the science because, like I said, other states that opened back up had less victims of COVID than those places that were locked down, because people were locked down in their house. They weren't exercising. They weren't able to go do this. They weren't able to socialize and have. There were people in hospitals that couldn't see their family and they were passing away because they were like, oh, you can't come to the hospital because of COVID, you know? So there was a lot of people that were more devastated because of the policies, and it
Well,
wasn't because they didn't look at what was actually happening. They said, okay, well, we're doing this because of this. Okay, fine. On merit, it was you did what you thought was right, but then after time, seeing that it was not working, they could have changed, but they chose not to, and that's the problem.
as you probably already know, um, those states that had the largest death toll were all red.
No, they weren't. New York and California.
We did not have the largest death toll. We did not.
Okay,
We did not. Okay,
okay.
and now back to who was sitting in the driver's seat, who where these policies were coming from,
So
back and
when
forth with the politics behind. Well, it's a political decision. I'm not going to get into political debate because first off, it's already done. More importantly, it's a problem that is not just relegated to Democrats or Republicans.
That's right.
Politics is a problem, period.
Yeah.
And then when you mix in life and death situations, it becomes a bigger problem. And so, as a citizen, I understand that. I might not necessarily be happy about it, but I understand this is, and I'm not saying I accept it, but I'm saying that in my particular position, as I got one vote type thing, I try to vote the way that would make the most sense at that moment in time
Mm-hmm.
because, people get there and we're going to do this, I'm going to change this, I'm going to vote this way, whatever. And then when they get in office, it's a whole different
Mm-hmm.
conversation. So, anyway, yeah, COVID was an experience that will go down in history along with the plague, the black plague, you know, the yellow plague, measles,
You mean
uh,
Spanish flu?
Spanish flu, you
Yeah.
name it. It'll be on the record books with all of those guys.
Mm-hmm.
But we made it this far, the ones who are still standing, and hopefully out of this crop, the next crop of politicians, or somewhere down the line, there'll be a crop of politicians who say, "Look, I'm really here to help the people." All this other stuff, when politics moved away from being the only politicians with rich people, and it became an opportunity for poor people, or not so rich people, middle class people, and even upper class, and not the ultimates, to become rich and richer. Then it lost its base as to, well, I'm here to serve the people. It became, I'm here, I'm gonna get paid, and then I'm gonna get paid. And yeah, and me and you, we can get paid, type of a thing. And what about the people? What people? It's just me and you here. You see? But anyway, we
Mm-hmm.
spent quite a bit of time on that.
Yeah.
47 minutes. You want to give your speak? Do you remember your
I might.
commercial?
Let's see. We would like to extend the opportunity for people that would like to recommend topics to us. If you would like to recommend a topic to us, please hit us up in the comment section. If you'd like to be a part of the panel, please hit us up in the comment section, and we look forward to hearing from you.
Great. And like we always say, we'll see you next week, same time, same bat channel, God willing, and the creek don't rise.
Creek